All right, good morning. So we got some new faces here, new people here. So let's just make sure everybody knows each other. Welcome again, Justin, Jesse, and I'm blanking right now. I know it.
Roberta
Zuniga. I know Zuniga. There you go, Roberta. Roberta Zuniga, and then Luciano is also newer agent with us as well. And we got Leslie and we got Cassie also in the back there too. So Amelia just hopped in. Looks like we got another guest here. Diana, welcome. And so what we're gonna jump into today, I'll just mute it real quick. Okay. We're gonna jump into the listing presentation. That's what our focus is really gonna be over the next 2 months. How do we take more listings? Making sure we master our presentation. How do you all feel about your listing presentation? What would you rate it? Scale 1 to 10? 10 being you got it mastered. You want to teach the class.
like,
10, you could teach the class, right? Well, good morning, Frank. What do you how do you guys feel? Do you feel pretty strong with it? Do you feel where do you feel? Jesse, I see a smile on your face. Where are you at? But
4.
you're about a 4? Why 4, man? I know you take a lot of listings. Why would you say a 4? Why so hard on yourself? What can you improve?
It's not
Yeah.
very candid, like, there's a system and thought process when you put the listings.
Uh-huh.
Especially, when you don't know a person
Right.
and they don't know you, they don't trust
Welcome,
you,
man.
so you're trying to demonstrate and come across with certain valid points to
Right.
get the listing. And most of the time, when I'm taking the listings, I'm pretty much, other than being confident that I can get the listing.
Right.
I don't think I touch on a lot of valid points, but they trust me already. There's some kind of relationship already with me going in and getting the listing.
Okay.
And trust already, where someone, if I go to a listing position, they don't normally don't trust me,
Right.
I may not get that listing.
Okay. So just saying, yeah, I'm just gonna move this around just so everybody can say hi on camera, just for the people that are out here. Make it more of a group discussion, put Cassie on the spot since she likes to be in front and center. No, so what you were just summing up, what you said is you feel pretty confident with people that already trust you, right? Your SOI, people that are already familiar with you, your confidence is high there, right? But if it's somebody who may not know you or was referred to you, that you don't, well, referral is pretty strong,
Yeah,
right?
the confidence is still there.
Right.
But I may not hit the point or might not be able to really capture what they're looking to
Okay.
get them to the point to where they sign the contract with me if they don't know me.
If they don't know you yet, okay? So that's a perfect segue into what we're gonna touch on, but is there anything else? I won't flip the camera, I'll keep it over here.
Yeah.
And, good morning, Macman. Anything else in terms of how people feel about their presentation, or what can they improve with their listing presentation? What areas would you like to strengthen, right? So one is, if you're meeting a complete stranger, right? And you're interviewing against 2 or 3 other strong agents or agents in general, or a friend of the client, right? That they've already promised. They're a brand new agent, but they promised they'd give them their first listing, so that's not always easy to beat as well. Any other challenges people see with their listing presentation? Or how do you feel? Cassie, how do you feel about yours?
Yeah, that's why I don't make eye contact with Ryan.
Okay, bring your
I'm
dog.
so sorry.
That's all right. Your dog's gonna be doing the listing presentation. Does your dog role play? All right. The dog rolls. The dog knows how to sit. All right. The dog pees, you gotta clean it up.
She won't pee.
All right.
Sometimes pee until you have heard it.
No worries, you're good. You're good. Thanks for being here. What were we gonna say, Kathy? Uh-huh.
A majority of my business comes from referral, so
Okay.
I would say like, if not almost all of my listing presentations have been referral based, and so I
Right.
go in with a different approach.
Mhm.
I'm very much like Jesse, where if I were to interview with someone I have no connection with,
Right.
I don't have a lot of confidence that I could close that
Okay,
on that day.
That
I
day.
feel like, sometimes I don't convey what I really wanted to go in there to say, or find out what they really need and be able to close the deal, because I'm too worried about making a connection and building rapport with them. That
Right.
I almost miss the other side of it, of like why they actually should list with me and why they should sign that contract that day.
Right.
So it's a little
That's
bit
perfect.
different.
No, I appreciate it. Just thank you for being honest and sincere, both of you, in your answers, because these two are top agents in our industry here, right? Both of them strong agents, done a lot of business. They've helped a lot of families out. And it's awesome to hear it, because as we master our presentation, as we master our listing presentation, you should feel the confidence that that you can walk into any situation and be able to close them, like understand them, connect with them, create the value, overcome their objections, and get to the point where they're either signing the paperwork then, and if they're not signing it then, you're going to make it very tough for them not to choose you and want to stay with you, even if you give them the space. So, okay, take some time to think about this. Go ahead and interview a few other agents, because you're so confident in your presentation. And it's one thing I want to recommend, that I've seen an agent who never broke 100,000. She was always around about 60, 70, about 5 years in the business, to doing 270,000 the next 12 months after doing some of the things that we're going to talk about here today. And one of the first thing, good morning. One of the first things she did was she outlined the presentation. So one of the things I became obsessed with the listing presentation. And what I mean by that is anytime a particular person would speak about it, I'd record it. So on my phone, and I always say this, anytime, yes, we're recording it on here, but I don't know how many actually go back and watch it on the YouTube and spend the time to actually listen to it in the car, right? But there's going to be nuggets of information. But what you should do is, one, you should record your own presentation, right? Your own listing presentation. What does it sound like from beginning to end? Okay. When's the last time any of you have recorded your own listing presentation? Right? Most people haven't done it. Or even recorded a phone call conversation if you're doing the pre-qual. So as we talk about, not in one meeting, it's not even confidence. Knowing that you can get enough information from that one particular meeting to be able to close them is very difficult to do. So that's part of why we've developed this listing process, where you're going to make a phone call before you meet with them, if you can, because it doesn't always work that way. You're going to try to make a phone call before the actual listing appointment and do what? Pre-qual, right? And then how does that go? How does that phone call go? Have you done the pre-qual before a listing appointment? Have you used that yet, Leslie?
Not very effectively.
Okay.
I'm trying to more now.
Okay.
But I haven't had much of an opportunity to lately.
Okay, well, we're going to do more of that. So you have more appointment opportunities, and then you're also going to have more opportunities to discover and pre-qualify, because you want to get the answers to the test before you take the test. And that is going to increase your conversion, is the pre-qual phone call. It's critical. The first time I really saw somebody do it well was at a Mike Ferry Superstar retreat. And the guy spent about 30 minutes on his pre-qual, 30 minutes. And I don't know how many questions he had. We have it in our Everest prospecting script and dialogue book, where we have a list of questions. There's probably about 20 questions on there. Take your top ones and take the ones that you like. But there's certain things that you're going to discover that you have to know why somebody wants to sell their home. Okay. So that pre-qual is important. And we're going to spend a class just on pre-qualification. But just for those of you that's new to, what it's like is, if I have an appointment on Friday at 4 o'clock, I'm going to say something to the effect of, I'll call them on Thursday and confirm the appointment, not text them. I'm going to call them. I'm going to call them up and say, okay, Jesse, before we get together tomorrow at 4 o'clock, I want to make sure we make the most out of our meeting. One, does it still work for you and your significant other?
Yeah.
Yeah, it still works for you. That's great. Well, I'm really excited to sit down with you. And to make the most out of the meeting, I got a few questions for you. Do you got a few minutes?
Yeah, go ahead.
Great. Okay, so first, just to start with, ultimately, what are you trying to accomplish with the sale of your home?
Well, as much as we can and move out of state.
Okay, so net as much as you can to move out of state. Tell me a little bit more about that. When do you have to be at your next place?
We're having a job relocation, so I need to be there in about 3 months.
Okay, so job relocation, that's key. Okay. When somebody says job relocation, they're motivated, they're moving. That's what you're trying to discover. So the more that you discover ahead of time, do you think I'm going to be a little bit more excited when I go to that listing presentation on Friday at 4 o'clock? Oh, you better believe it. I'm coming in with as much enthusiasm, and you have to remember that. Even if you're not naturally a very enthusiastic person, you got to be excited. If you're not excited to sell their home, they're not going to want you to sell their home. Okay, regardless of what the situation is. So if you notice, my energy is already picked up. just off of him saying that one thing, because I'm like, bingo, I got this. They're gonna sell the home and I'm gonna take this listing. That's the mindset you have to have going into a situation. But if I don't make that phone call ahead of time, I have no clue what I'm walking into. Do you understand how that changes the playing field completely? I have no idea. So I want to understand what his objections are. What's his hesitation in working with me? Is pricing going to be an issue? What does timing look like? Right? This is all in the pre-qualification process. So the more that we dissect this down to a science, no matter who it is that we're meeting with, we're not always going to have the luxury to be able to do it. What I mean that is I can think of specific situations where somebody called me up and said, hey, can you be at my place in 15 minutes? And when I first started out, there's no way I would have done that because I wouldn't feel prepared. It's like, I'm not going to walk into that. They're going to ask me what this house is worth. I have no clue. This is a neighborhood I've never done anything in. I need at least 2 hours to research and figure this out. But now I'm going to jump on that in a second. And then I'm going to change it to a 2-part listing presentation. The first one's going to be all discovery. So I'm going to go there because I want to be the first one to meet them and go there with confidence, right? Right away, I can pull it up on RPR and see, okay, what's an estimated value real quick, just to give me a range, just in case they start asking some questions. Then I'm going to look for the highest comp in that neighborhood. And I'm going to know what is the highest sale in the neighborhood, not exact model match. Doesn't always have to be. If it is, it's better. But know what the highest sale was, because more than likely that seller knows. You have to assume they know it, because if you don't know about it, you already lost points. So these are the only quick things I'm going to do right away. Okay. The beauty now is we have DocuSign. So if that meeting goes very well, I just send it off to them, have them sign it, and I close. So I don't even need to worry about having it all pre-printed. But if I have time, I'm going to have a printed listing presentation, because there's a psychological effect that happens when you give a great presentation and they're looking for a close. Most of us won't ask for the business. We want them to just get excited and say, okay, let's go. Let's get ready to start. And I want to hire you. Doesn't always work that way. And sometimes they're testing you to see what your confidence is, right? But you also have to know when to close. You don't close too early because you haven't created enough value. Okay. So there's 6 things that I wrote on here in terms of presenting. Okay. Anytime you do a listing presentation, these are the things that you're trying to accomplish in any presentation. And that's including a listing presentation. So number 1, you got to build rapport, as was talked about earlier, right? A lot of times we focus so much on building rapport, and rapport is something that people think, well, we got to have things in common. That's not necessarily the case. Okay. You can create rapport, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, just coming up. But 2, create value. You create value by asking great questions, and we'll get into more detail on creating value. Number 3, they have to feel safe with you. Okay. They have to feel, you have to create a safe environment. This is where the magic happens. Once I started realizing through mediation training that our goal was to, in a very hostile environment where 2 people don't get along, you have to make them feel safe. If they don't feel safe, they won't open up. They're not going to trust you, right? Which is the next one. Number 4, they have to trust you. 5, separate. What does separate mean?
Separating their sort of personal emotions towards the process versus their needs, I guess.
I like that. That's a good one. Separate yourself from the competition. Okay. This is a big one, but I like that. I like detaching your biases and focusing on what their needs are. That's great. Okay. And that'll be under the creating value of discovery and the rapport. Okay. And then final, it's close. So those are the 6 areas in every presentation that we have to master. These are the things that have to happen for them to, it's not even as important that they like us. It just gets a lot easier if they like us. They got to like us. They have to trust us. And then we have to lead them, and they have to follow us. And that is what is supposed to happen in a listing presentation, in a buyer's presentation. These key things have to happen. Okay. So I printed it out, and I'll hand it out later. Okay. But just because I want to keep the focus here. Okay. So in terms of rapport, what I have written down, and you'll all be able to take a copy of this here. So rapport, what does that mean to you? This is focusing again on the seller here, okay? If you ever had a time that you didn't feel like you had built rapport, are you feeling blank because you are needing blank? This is what you're asking. Are you feeling upset because you're needing a little bit more attention, right? We're trying to miss about building rapport. You have things in common. You need to be the same. You have to talk about Ford, right? Talked about SOI, how we, we talk about Ford, family, occupation, recreation, dreams. It's not necessary to build rapport. Ways to do it, take really good notes and listen to them. That's why I take my journal around everywhere. We've been criticized before. Oh, don't take a journal. It looks too formal, right? And I do it every time. It's automatic. Because what it does is it shows that I'm listening to them. It shows that I take that person seriously. It shows it doesn't matter how casual or how formal the situation is. If I'm doing business in terms of getting listing business or buyer business or whatever the case is, I'm going to walk around with my journal. And I do it at every single listing presentation. And I can bet money that I probably take listings because I walk around with that journal. It's not even the listing presentation that's beautifully bound and everything else. It's because I'm so focused. I have questions prepared in there in my journal. I have stats in there in my journal written down already saying how many actives, how many pendings, how many solds on a given price point between 700,000 and 800,000, because I know what my competition is. I know what we're up against, and I can just refer to my notes that I've already pre-written down before I've shown up. These are all things that separate me from the competition. You have to look at what separates you from the competition. What makes you different? It could be the way you dress. It could be the way that you connect with people. It could be the way that you speak, your tonality, how you listen, right? These are all different things that you understand and you develop a process. And once you do and you see it works, you can duplicate that process, which again adds to the confidence, okay? So now let's get to creating value. So how do we create value? We've talked about this before. How do we create value, Nagme?
We first ask a lot of questions.
Ask a lot of questions, right? What are we gonna say?
I'm sorry, just
Go
want to
ahead.
go back.
Yeah.
On the building report.
Yep.
I heard one time when, listing presentation, this listing agent took a listing
Uh-huh.
and, well, she didn't take the list, she went to the listing presentation, but she didn't get it. Because she was so, she tried to build rapport, but what she didn't pick up was the lady was very, visual with flowers and how beautiful things were,
Uh-huh.
where she was very someone that comes in with numbers. So I think building rapport, you need to identify their analytical.
Right.
So that was one of the things. So sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, it's a great point, and we'll get back to creating more value, but that's actually a way of creating value too. So did everybody pick up on what Jesse said? Okay, and that's also when it says you don't have to have things in common. You don't need to be the same. You have to understand the different personality styles. Okay, so just because I come in with my numbers doesn't mean I'm going to start spitting numbers with every single person, because it could be somebody who's more expressive, who's more feeling based, not fact based. Does everybody understand the 4 personality styles? Are you pretty quick to understanding those? Frank, you're nodding your head. So what are the personality styles? The 4 styles. Uh-huh.
Amiable
Amiable, okay.
and vibe.
Driver, all right. And what's the other one? Analytical, great job. Yep, says, go ahead. Oh, I think
Engineer type.
engineer type, right? Engineer type analyticals. Are you analytical? Just a little bit, right? Just a little bit, okay? Analyticals usually, and this is not saying anything, I'm more analytical definitely at times, or maybe all the time. Analytical, welcome.
Sorry, I'm late.
No, come in. We still got a chair back there. You got the last seat. We kick everybody else out from this point. Okay, we'll just shut the door. We're at max capacity in here, so. So analyticals though, typically are a little bit slower paced in terms of how they communicate. So the reason why this is important, as we talk about connecting, creating value, building rapport, you have to recognize what kind of personality style they are. There's 4 major styles. You also hear the DISC method, right? I still don't completely I'm a high D, I'm an I, I'm this. I still don't get it. So I can't teach that, but I can teach you this. There's a book called Versatile Selling. If you want to get better at adapting and connecting with more people, read that book. Really short book, maybe 100 pages in total. It's got some good diagrams and pictures. I like books with pictures, right? You got your pictures in there. So cartoons are in there, very, very easy to understand, right? And that's the reason why I drew this picture on here, because you have people who are more fact-based. You got people who are more feeling-based, okay? You got people who are more they're going to tell you what's going on. And you got people who ask more questions. So based on the quadrant, people who are more fact-based, you come in with the facts and the numbers, they're going to appreciate that. You're speaking their language. Look at it as speaking different languages, okay? And people will communicate and they'll listen and they'll connect more with what you're saying if you pick up on what their personality style is. So that's another reason why that pre-qualification phone call is so important, because you have to try to analyze and understand what personality style are they. Are they expressive? And expressive likes to talk a lot. You can't shut them up. You need at least an hour and a half for your listing presentation with an expressive, because they are going to tell you everything about everything. And they like the center of attention. They typically wear bright clothes. I'm looking around the room right now for everybody wearing bright clothes here, right? They Severia threw his arms up real quick. May have an expressive in the back there. No, and what's interesting, I actually think you're more analytical. And see, analyticals and expressives can get confused. Both of them like to talk a lot. Analyticals, though, will typically seem a little bit slower to processing things, but once they know something, you can't shut them up. Guilty of that, right? And they'll explain everything about everything and give you the pros and the cons. They'll give you the risk versus the rewards. Attorneys are analytical, engineers are analytical. I was an aerospace engineer. I went to friggin' law school. Okay, so that shows my cards right there. So I hear some chuckles over here like I talk a lot. Is there anybody who wants to say that I do like to talk? Okay. So what I had to learn, because I like to talk so much, is how to ask great questions and shut up. And that's an important thing for all of us to understand, that when you get them to start speaking, shut up. And I mean that in the most polite, respectful way possible, right? You are going to lose getting the key information that's going to allow you to take that listing or connect with them or be their agent. Your whole job is to ask great questions and listen. Once they start flowing, you shut up. If they're not flowing and they're giving you one-word answers, anybody ever felt that before? You ask them, so tell me about why you want to sell your home. I just want it sold. And this is a legit answer.
Yeah.
It's a legit, that's a driver, right? Drivers, I don't care how the baby's made, just show me the baby, right? I don't care how you sell the home. I'm calling you to sell my home. This was a guy who I had no idea he was a driver until we sit down. He's a friend, referral. And I'm just like, so what are you looking for in the agent that you look to hire, right? And that's a key question. And write this one down. This one's gotten me gold. It was not, I didn't read the personality style right on this one, but I asked him that question. So what are your expectations in the agent you look to hire? He's like, I don't know, man. Sell my house. I called you. I want you to sell my house. And he got real short quick. And I'm like, I just laughed. I didn't even know how to respond to it. I was like, okay, I can do that. I can sell your house. So do you want to take care of the paperwork? He's like, yeah, let's do it. And I was like, all right, your family, so I'll take care of you. What's crazy is I hooked him up on commission. This is the only time it's ever happened. So I give him the discounted family rate, but he overpriced the listing. And I told him, I said, you're overpriced by about 30,000 on a condo, right? We're at 450, should have been about 420. And he's like, no, he's like, Bitcoin's the new thing, right? Crypto. He's like, let him know that I'll take crypto. And so it's worth more money because I'll take crypto. And this is going to be the wave of the future. He's telling me all this. I was like, I'll put it in agent remarks. I've never seen this before, but I'll do it. I'll be the first one to write that will sell this crypto. So we do it at 450. Sure enough, we're getting nothing in the first week, 2 weeks. I'm telling us that, but we got to drop the price. And he's like, okay, drop the price. And the number was 430. We actually dropped it. I wanted 420. We got it to 430. So we drop it to 430,000. But once we drop it to 430, he's all, look, because he works in car sales. He's like, I want you to get a full commission. I want you to get 6%. I'm like, sounds good to me. Let's do it. 6%. And I did 3 and 3. I didn't take 3.5, do 2.5. I did 3 and 3. We did it. Sure enough, it ends up, and I didn't discount if I represented both sides. I found the buyer on it. I got 6% on that one after he dropped the price. And all he had to do was drop the price. If he dropped the price, that would have been enough. But 6% I wasn't complaining about. It was just interesting because we all think that it's always commission and it's always price. It's not. I undersold myself to him, thinking as a friend, he was going to be, because I knew he knew other top agents and brokers in the area. I assumed it. Overpriced it, took it at a low commission. Luckily, it was a friend. He's like, look, man, I want you to get paid and I want them to be motivated as well. And we did. We had some good action and ended up double ending it, which was even better at an open house and got a 6%er. You know what I mean? So don't think that it has to be that way to take the listing. And when you understand this process and you work it in a certain way, I'm telling you, you're going to take more listings and you're going to take it at higher commissions. And this isn't because we're trying to teach greed. We're teaching you how to create value and how to separate yourself from the competition. And that's really where it gets key. And we'll get into that just a little bit more. Any questions before we jump into any more? I know I left off on you with creating more value here. So let's jump back into that. Any other questions though before that? Because she's going to tell us a lot about questions right now, right? So, all right, your turn up here, Nagme. No? You want to do it from here? Okay, so ask a lot of questions. So how do you create value at your presentations? Because you're really good at listing presentations. She's good at door knocking, meeting a complete stranger and being able to create the confidence there and take a listing. You've done that before, right? Once or twice, a few times. So how did you do that?
So I think it's kind of, I've learned to listen a lot more.
Can I flip it on you? There's only like 3 people out there. Come on, keep going. So you've learned to listen a lot more?
So yeah, so it's basically asking questions, listening, and of course we have the scripts to follow, but it's really just a guideline because once you start asking questions, then, you know, and if you're listening, then I think their response may lead to other questions, and then you just kind of keep going and you know, it's more of, I think if you're, and I've done both where I've been in a weird headspace where I just kind of become a robot and I just start to ask questions and then I respond, but I'm really not listening and sort of trying to figure out what they're trying to tell me.
Right.
And that's where things go wrong. But if I stick with sort of maybe the emotional side of it, where I try to figure out, okay, what is it they're trying to tell me? What is it that they want? And then try to find ways to say, okay, you know, I've got you, you know, I can solve that problem for you, or, you know, I can help you kind of walk that walk.
Right.
So.
No, that's great. That's really good information. Anything else anybody has questions about with that, or how they ask questions and create value?
Amelia on Zoom.
Amelia, I think it's great.
Okay, Amelia, go ahead.
So I love what Nagme said, and it brings me back to kind of what I do, and that's repeat and affirm. It's one of the most powerful things you can do in a listing presentation, well, for me, because I am an expressive, but I also have this closet driver inside of me that I will kind of just take control when I like the conversation. But when I say, oh, so you're moving for work, so tell me, what do you do? I'm an aerospace engineer. You're an aerospace engineer. So interesting. Tell me a little bit more about that. And as that has nothing to do with the house sale, I'm not an aerospace engineer by any means, but people hearing themselves talk feel like they like the other person because they're listening, like, oh, this person's relating to me. So repeating and affirming and allowing the other side to speak, even if it's not about the house sale, I feel is like the key to my listing presentation.
That's great. No, that was perfect. Thank you, Amelia. And to elaborate on what you're sharing right here and the key things, if you didn't write it down, when you ask your initial question, there's a lot of times, remember, the trust isn't always there. It's typically not there with real estate agents. Why don't they initially trust us? Why is it common for people not to trust a real estate agent? You ever notice you had a great conversation? You meet somebody at a party, you start talking to them, they ask you what you do, and you're having a connection, everything's going great. Is anybody ever embarrassed to say they're a realtor? Or have they noticed the mood shift or the change?
Seen it before.
Have you guys seen
Yeah.
it? They love you, you're their best friend, you're a realtor?
You're a real estate agent, then like, it changes.
It's
I mean,
what?
just the mood just goes quiet.
Right. Why?
Why? I think it's because, it has to do with financials, has to do with money.
Mhm.
And every time there's,
See us as a salesperson,
yeah.
right?
And then there's money involved, they know that trying to sell them something will drive them through,
Excuse me,
It was,
excuse you, Amelia.
it was my phone buzzing.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to share this morning, I had that exact same scenario at my Rotary meeting where a gentleman in our group has health issues, his significant other passed away. And I legitimately went over there to just see how he was doing and ask like, how are you doing? It's good to see you. I haven't seen you since it's been a month. You know, I'm sorry to hear about Lily, blah, blah, blah. But he immediately went into like, because one of the other Rotary members introduced a thing like, if you do need any help with your home, Cassie can help you.
Right,
But I didn't say anything because I wanted to make sure it was about him and his health and his personal situation.
perfect.
So when I went over there this morning, he immediately went into, I got your email. And I'm like, like, it's just, I think it's hard when they immediately assume that your motivation is financial or that
Right.
your motivation is to sell their home. And sometimes that's the hard line to toe of like, I do legitimately care about you. Yes, of course, I'm happy to help you, but I do want to know more about how you're doing and how you're feeling.
Right,
And I think that's what's hard for us is because people immediately assume our motivation is not,
right.
they're seeing their well-being, you know what I mean? Like, it's more about, can we sell your house, you know?
It is. But no, I circled safety and trust, right?
Yeah.
And in creating safety, you mitigate the risk, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, but the trust is big. And just really just calling it for what it is, people assume we have ulterior motives. Okay, they assume all we care or that we're insincere in our relationship or our friendship because all we care about is that they sell our home. Now, there are many people, and I've been guilty of it myself, where I hear, oh, they worked with somebody else, like I'm not talking to that person again. Cut it off completely, right? Taking it as a personal thing that they chose to work with somebody else. It's hard. It's hard because they know this is what we do. And sometimes people don't want to mix the two, right? They don't want you knowing their business. They don't want you knowing their financials. So that it makes it even more difficult to share with them. You know, I had a situation, it was a family member, and it was somebody who I know he liked me. I know he trusted me. I know there was enough of that, but I was related to somebody he was separated with. And so ultimately, he didn't want the chance that they could find out about his financial situation, right? So we have to try even harder to assure them and create that. I go back to the mediation and think of this. One of the things I would say at the beginning of a mediation is, okay, we are in a what's called a cone of confidence. Everything that happens in this room, this one guy liked the way he said it, is that what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, right? What happens in this room stays in this room. You create this trust that no matter what we talk about is going to stay here. And it's critical that you make people feel that way. And they have to know that you're not going to go out there and run your mouth about what their financial situation is, what they want. They have to trust you as their confident, as their representation, that you're not going to give away the farm if you know what their bottom line is, right? Which is very challenging. And so for a while, because that's how I was brought into it, was we wouldn't ask the client what their bottom line was because of the perception that if we knew it, and we ultimately ended up selling it at that then they would think maybe they undersold me because I told them that, and that's what we ended up selling it for. You get what I'm saying? So I actually like that kind of it did the same thing in terms of creating the trust. Now, with that being said, I can get somebody's bottom line and still make the point to them like, it's okay if I know your bottom line. That's between us. And I try to handle it almost like an attorney-client type situation, right? Just because I know it, that's between us, right? But my job is to make you every dollar we can if that's what you're trying to accomplish to do. And that's why you're hiring me. I love negotiating, right? And I've heard somebody train and say, don't say you love. I do it all the time. And it works for me. They say not to because then you make it about you, not them. Always keep it about them. Okay. So I still, even though I know the rules, I still break the rules all the time. Okay. And I'm going to teach you all the rules as well. Once you understand the rules, you know how to play the game and you'll know how to understand the game. And it is a game. This really is. When you understand how to win, you will win the game because you understand the rules that actually work. Okay. Everything that we're teaching, this is the fundamentals. This is the truth. There's no recreating this. This has been proven and it works, but you have to understand how to implement it into your business. And you have to understand it, whether you're analytical or not. You have to be able to come up with some type of structure that you can duplicate this process. And if you're not getting those results, you got to figure out what do we need to do that. Okay. So every single one of us can fine tune this. We can all get stronger with our presentation. And there's an area here. So we'll talk more about the creating value. How do you build value with them? What is important to them? Understand their needs, their wants, their expectations. Once they know that you understand what they're looking for, they are more committed to you. But you got to know what they're looking for. Look at it as you're a coach trying to understand what their goals are. Okay. Reducing the risk. What are the risks that they're facing? What do I mean by reducing the risk? How do people feel when you say you're ready to sign the contract? When they hear the word contract or sign, how do you feel, Leslie? If I say, Leslie, okay, sign the contract.
I feel, committed, if you're asking me to commit to you.
Right. Do you
That-
want to do that? Does that create any type of apprehension?
Absolutely.
Okay. So what about it makes you feel that way?
Because you feel like there's no backing out.
Okay.
Once you
You're
decide.
committed to something, right? So how can I make
Pressure.
pressure? So it could be the words that I'm even using. It could be the tone. It could be the approach. It could be timing. You got to understand these things. Contract, the word contract. We've been taught not to sign the contract, right? So this is, if you want to learn better, sharper sales skills, listen to, what's his name? It's killing me right now. Simi Valley guy. Ken talks about him all the time. It'll come to me. Tom Hopkins. Thank you. Thank you for triggering it. Tom Hopkins. He says, never say sign the contract. People will authorize it. They'll put their John Hancock on it, right? But they don't want to sign the contract. Certain words you use, they will step back. Other words you use, they'll commit. Can we take care of some paperwork? That's better. Let's take care of some paperwork, then sign the contract. Does that make sense? Okay. It's also, if you have the contract in your briefcase, it's an intimidating thing, just like how I walked up and just put the contract in front of her. The paperwork should already be out. He says, if you go hunting, you don't see the bird, get the gun, load it, and then try to shoot it, right? It's already loaded. Your paperwork, and I keep saying paperwork instead of contract, needs to be your best friend. Your pen and your paperwork are your best friend. Get them comfortable with seeing you write. That's why the journal and the pen are so important, because I'm writing, I'm taking notes. They're already comfortable. It's not new. I didn't just pull the pen out of my briefcase. I didn't just pull the contract out. Paperwork's already there. You see what I'm saying? There's so much psychology to this that you have to be ready to go. If you're showing property, again, we don't need to do it now because of DocuSign, but you should have the offer already with you as you're showing property. Try it. Try to have the offer there. Have it ready to go. Start showing it and explaining it to them. And this is also part of the close. How do you spell your last name? Oh, Smith. S-M-I. Nobody laughed. Smith's an easy one, right? It's obvious. Or Ford or okay. This is the jokes aren't falling right now. I got you guys too listening too deep or bored out of your mind. So one of the two. But these are closing questions, right? As you're starting to fill it out. So what price do you think is a good price for this one, right? And we start working on it. Now, I don't go full on Tom Hopkins with this, but I listen to what he says and it makes a lot of sense. And you start changing your approach with how you start communicating with people. So it's a good thing to listen to there. Any other questions with that? I know I got a lot that I want to get through and I'm trying to keep it focused on just the presentation aspect of it. I know we touched on it before and I can go over the outline. And I know many of you have heard the outline and some of you haven't heard it yet. So let me just jump into it a little bit more with reducing the risk. So things that I do when I know we're getting close is I'm going to identify and figure out how do I make it as easy as possible to commit. Okay. So in reducing the risk, what I used to do, and I'm not saying to do this because it can bite you in the butt. If I can tell that they're ready to sign, but their fear is signing a contract with you, then one thing I would say in the past was, if I don't do what I say I'm going to do, and you're not happy with the results that we're getting, we'll rip up the contract. Okay, I don't say this anymore. And there's a reason why I don't say it anymore. But does anybody know why I would have said that in the past? Does that take the pressure off?
It's a closing time.
It is a closing, but does it take the pressure off?
Oh, yeah,
Big time, right? Does it work?
yeah. What I used to do with my contracts is I will write a clause in the contract to make them feel comfortable and say, if I'm not doing what I'm promising to do, then you can cancel this contract in 3 days. Simple as that, no questions asked, and we can do it that way. And they were like, oh, that makes sense. Okay.
Sign the paperwork, right? And it also shows confidence because that's their hesitation. I had an analytical, it was a guy, he was German. They both had very strong German accents, engineer type, right? And I had this presentation down pretty strong and I had the numbers down strong and that's what he liked. And he's like, look, I'm a CFO, whatever, right? Engineer analytical type, but he's high up there. He's like, I've been around people like you all the time. That's legitimately what he said, right? They talk a big game. They're good. They're great communicators. How do I know you're going to do what you say you're going to do? And that's his legit question to me as I'm feeling like I'm killing it through this presentation. He had another person that interviewed right before offered to do it all for 3%. Also dropped off a book that they wrote. Right? I'm sure they wrote that book, but you've seen those real estate books that you put your picture on the front,
Oh, yeah.
dropped off a book. Oh, she wrote a book. Have you written a book? I said, no, I'm selling homes. I'm not writing books. They just kind of smiled at that response. And I'm like, are you kidding me right now? You want to know if I wrote a book, right? This is how this person's separating herself from the competition. And then she said, she's going to do it for 3. So when they called me the next day, that's what they asked. But getting back to when they hit me on, how do I know you're going to do what you say you're going to do? Guess what I showed him next? Analytical guy. I showed him my numbers, showed him all my past sales. This is called a report card if you have it. Okay. I go back 2 years. They don't look at the dates. Go back 2 years and print every single home that you've ever sold. Circle your average days on market. At that time, average days on market was 109 for Newbury Park. Mine was 14. Do you think that created value?
Oh, yeah.
It closed the deal. Okay. When they said, oh, well, you talk a great game. It's like, okay, here you go. Showed them all my past sales. Showed them my list price versus my sold price was over 100%. What that means is what I listed it at sold over on average for however many homes I've sold in the last 2 years. Now the numbers were skewed a little because you can add buyers and listing side on it. And again, they don't know. They're just seeing a list of all these homes that you sold and looking at your average. So that actually extended my average days on market a little bit, but it didn't matter. What was more impressive was all the past sales. So then I highlighted those things that shut them up real quick. And I'm like, all right, you do what you say you're going to do. Bam, let's sign it. And I've had sellers tell me based on that printout. And all you do is when you look up your past sales, I can show you all how to do it. When you pull that up, you go to the agent office, you pull it up, and then you see all your past transactions. You change it in the filter. And again, I go back 2 years. And then on that filter, I'm going to put buying side and listing side because it looks more impressive. Print that out, and that's coming with me at any time I'm meeting with a seller. Okay. Because I'm going to show them those numbers. Yep.
What happens if you haven't done sales and you don't got numbers?
And
And you use this tactic, you use the tactic that you say, well, put me to work and look what happens in the next 3 to 4 days.
then it could work.
Use your office or your company.
You could. Try to pull the office numbers.
What my
This is what we've done. Yeah, again,
That's-
if you have it, no, good point though.
that's
If you,
branding and they have a stand.
right. And there's always a way to do it. Again, this is just one way. This is just one thing. I'm telling you what I'm gonna do every single time. Every single time I'm gonna print that out. If I forget it, I'm upset at myself. That to me is even more important than my marketing material. Half the time I don't even need to show my marketing material. I'm telling you, it's not as big of a deal as we think it is. It can be based on discovery, based on what we discover, and we'll go through that. Okay. Does anybody need a quick break? I know it's we started at 9:30, we're at 10:16. I've been going pretty heavy into this. Yes, you need a quick break? All right, let's take 5 minutes and we're gonna reconnect and then we'll jump back into it. Okay. Any questions about what we've talked about so far? Is this helpful? Does it feel any new? Is it different?
Yeah, I had a question.
Yes.
You were talking about, once, the analytical type
Uh-huh.
starts to talk, just be quiet and let
Right.
them go. And then you started saying, if they are like the one word answers, you gave the example of how
Right.
the person just wanted to sign.
Right.
But do you have any other strategies to help those types of people?
That don't give you much?
Yeah, if they're not ready to sign, but they're up and
Great question. So you got to dig deeper. You got to create a little bit more value. So sometimes I have to tell. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Figured I'd come in during
Yeah.
the break.
No, you're good. You're good. I didn't realize you were sitting out there. I think we need one more chair. We'll pull in.
I'll get it.
Okay, you got it. So what you're gonna do in that situation, though, it's similar to what Amelia was talking about tell me a little bit more about that, right? So they're gonna say, okay, I need to move some, or I'm having job relocation. That's it, just job relocation. Sometimes we'll write job reload and just go to the next question. That's a huge mistake. They gave you the nugget of information right there. Like that's the gold. Now I gotta know more about it and I gotta dig deeper. And you want to get to the emotional level, not the logical answer. That's all they're giving you is a surface answer. We got to get deep the way that Cassie was doing as she's listening and caring and connecting and being empathetic, which is more amiable. And I wouldn't call you an amiable by any means, right? But this is a very good quality. Mike Ferry actually says these are the best to have. And just so you all know, we have Mike Ferry that we're gonna have booked coming up here. I'll get the date. I'll do it at the end of this so I don't lose track. It's on a Thursday, I think, coming up in a couple weeks. 22nd. Okay. Well, Laura booked it. So thank you for booking it, Laura. So Thursday, the 22nd.
yes, from 1:30 to 4:30.
1:30 to 4:30. So make sure that you're all there. It's just right up the street. It's the Board of Education, right?
5100 Adolfo Road.
Yeah, right up the street.
Oh, over there by the Roxy.
Yeah, right behind the Roxy,
Yeah.
right over there. So we got a nice, good sized room, up to 100 people, I think. So we need to fill that place up. Definitely I want all of our agents there. And his focus is going to be how to be a strong listing agent. So hopefully some of this is going to echo what you're going to hear in more depth there. And then if you can do it, I want to have the biggest turnout at Superstar Retreat. Anybody that can do it. It is in the summer. It's in Vegas, Caesars. So we're gonna have a good time out there too. That's gonna be about July 18th, I believe. It's right around there. I know we're wrapping up All Stars and all that fun stuff, but I'm gonna do everything I can to be out there. So if anybody else wants to do, whether it's a couple people or whether we get a nice big group. I've never gone and regretted doing it. It's like going to the gym. It's a pain getting there, at least for me. It's a pain getting there. Once you're there, you're so grateful that you're there and you're actually doing it. You do this Superstar Retreat. If anybody isn't satisfied with their experience there, I'll refund them personally. Bless you. Because I know that you're going to get the value that you need. And I know for me, it's always the boost and the focus I need to make sure that every single time I do it, the return is ridiculous on its investment. Go there, be focused. Now, if you go there and you party the whole time and you're foggy minded the whole time, you don't get anything out of it, I'm not refunding you. Okay. But if you go there and you're actually trying and you're listening and you're doing it and you're like, no, Mike Ferry sucks, this was a waste of time, then I'll refund you personally because I know you're all going to get the value out of it. Okay. I wish I could pay for you all to go out there, but I know it'll be worth your time. So that's as much as I'm going to say. And he's not paying me anything to say any of this crap. Okay. It's how much I know it's helped me out. All right. So it's digging deeper. And then the tactic, if you want to call it a tactic that I do, is I know that they don't trust me enough yet. So I'm going to ask more questions. Sometimes I'll start it off and I'll try to get to know them a little bit more on a personal level. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell me a little bit about, I'm just gonna use it in recruiting, which usually people blank out when I say recruiting. Just so you know, recruiting and the objections with recruiting are very equivalent to a FSBO, for sale by owner. So anytime you hear me talk about recruiting, think of a for sale by owner. It's almost identical.
How long did it take you to recruit me?
You're the worst FSBO I've met. But you're still here, right?
But I'm here.
And what did it take? It took follow-up. It took setting the appointment. It took a lot of sushi. This guy likes
You
sushi.
know, one of the things that I like about, yeah. One of the things that I like about you, that it put my pressure away too, because every time we were meeting, you're like, Silver, let's go have a coffee or whatever, no pressure, we're not gonna talk about business, you know, let's talk about family and life and stuff like that. I'm like, this is cool, I can do it, you know, but if you start talking about, dude, when are you gonna move with us? You know, blah, 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 and I'm like, you know what, I don't have time, bro.
Right. Well, but I did exactly what I'm talking about. I took the risk off. I took the pressure off. This isn't gonna be about recruiting.
Yeah.
I got to know them. You have to get to know your clients, your prospects, yes.
So when you're talking about someone who's like what Laura is saying, like one word answers,
Right.
opening up, really closed off, is
Uh-huh.
that the tool that you would use to maybe open them up a little bit would be, you know, I can tell that maybe we're not connecting or that you have some hesitation.
You can
You
call,
know,
yeah.
like almost call them out, like, hey,
You
look,
could.
I know we're not connecting. I'm not trying to force it. Tell me a little bit about what, you know, what are your hesitations? And then
Yeah.
at least maybe it could open it up a little bit.
It could, and I wouldn't say connecting, I would say something to the effect of, I understand that this is a very stressful process. That this is gonna be one of the top 5 most stressful things you're ever gonna experience, right? Along with, you know, divorce, hopefully not that, right? Death, like these types of things, your taxes, this is up there with it. We have to understand and call it for what it is. And say, I get that, you don't know me from the next person here. What I can promise you is that if you can open up and share with me a little bit more, that you will get some information out of this that's gonna help you no matter what, whether you work with me or not. Does that take the pressure off?
Yeah.
Does that open it up? Does that kind of lower it? So it's called relationship tension. So that book, I want you to read that book, Versatile Selling. Okay. Yeah, relationship, versatile selling by Wilson Thompson Learning Group. What he talks about right out the gate, it's called relationship tension, and the tension is high. And we got to bring it down. It looks like this. Okay. The tension is high, and this is relationship tension because they don't trust you yet. So we have to bring that wall down. We got to find out how to get that wall down. And if we can tell we're not there and we're asking questions, now you're interrogating because they don't trust you. So now everything you're asking, you're a salesperson, they don't want to hear from you. They're not going to open up. You got to figure something out, and you got to figure out how to bring it down. Sometimes it's cracking a joke. Sometimes it's making light of the situation. Other times that's horrible. That's the worst thing you can do, especially if they're serious and they're tense. They don't want to hear a joke. Now that wall's going up even higher, right? So you really have to figure out, and it's by the things you do, like when you first go in and say, should I take off my shoes, right? Before you walk into the house, already starts lowering that guard. So like, you know, Mike Ferry will make fun of, oh, you have a dog, I have a dog, right? He jokes about that. He's all, they don't want a friend. They want a professional. There's a difference. This is also how you're going to separate yourself from the competition. You're going to make very clear, not saying that you can't be friends, but they want a leader. They want somebody strong. This is what most people, when times are tough, you have to be the lighthouse. You have to be the light. And remember that. You have to be the one who gives them hope, inspiration, love, empathy, all of those things. That's what they're looking for, is leadership and guidance. Do you think times are great right now, or do you think times are tough? Times are tough for everybody. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're the owner of this company. Times are tough, right? You can have a lot of money. Times are tough for everybody. That's the reality of it, okay? And if anybody's putting any other type of perception up, it's not the reality. Well, the good news about that is you can shine as a leader right now, very clearly, because that's what people are looking for. So don't be passive. Don't be afraid. Don't be meek. Be bold. Ask great questions, lead them, listen to them first, then lead them. They want to be heard. Repeat and affirm, show them that you're listening. Take notes, be sincere, sincerity of purpose. That's a key thing that I want everybody to write down. Be sincere with your intentions. It's not about me making a commission. It's not about me listing a home or getting you to buy a home. It's about you doing what's best for you, period. Because if people read through your sincerity, you're done. If they feel you're sincere and you truly care about the other person, if I would have been there and tried to hard close Silver every time we met, I knew eventually he'd get frustrated with where he was at. And he called me, and in that conversation, he said, hey, I'm calling you first. You always called me. You always followed up with me. I consider you a friend. I owe it to you to talk to you first. That's loyalty. That's follow-up. That's commitment. That's how you have to be with your clients. That's why when we talk about recruiting, listen to it. Because if you can recruit, if any of you can recruit in here, then I know you can sell a lot of real estate. Because it's the same skill set. It's the same thing. And I've seen people, I've recruited them. And then after I teach this, they're like, you manipulated me. You used all these dirty tricks and tactics, and you knew what you were doing. And it's not. The truth is the truth. I'm going to teach what I do, right? What I've learned, what people have taught me. And as long as your intentions are good, it's okay. Now, if your intentions aren't good, then nobody would be in this room right now. Okay. And that's the reality of it.
People can read your, whether you're honest or not, and whether you're shaking, whether you're nervous about it, whether you have confidence or not, they can read that. And once they read you, you're out.
It's 100%. And that's why when we've worked in open house together, that's why you're able to do what you do. And that's why anytime we've worked and done business together, I've seen it. And there is nobody better in that space. And all of us have that in us. All of us do. We may not know it yet. We may not be there yet. And that's okay. There's times that we're there and we forget it the next week, right? You can be there at one moment and feel like everything's just working out. Everything's just hitting exactly where it needs to hit. And that next week, like, what happened to that person last week?
Yeah.
Right? Where did it go? So then we got to get strong on the mindset. Then we got to get reconnected. Then we got to plug back in. Then we got to remember how great we really are. It's not an arrogance. It's an understanding of the value that we bring. It's what we have inside us. And it's our ability to connect. That's all this is. When I'm going through this boring checklist, right? Try to take the nuggets out of this. Try to really understand if I'm missing it somewhere, where am I missing it? What do I need to improve on that is going to allow somebody to open up and drop that relationship tension? So the next tension that you'll see on there is called task tension. And it's the opposite. Can anybody get an idea what that symbol is? Task tension is low early on. Does anybody know what that means? Task. So the task that they need to do, the next action they need to take is low. We got to increase that. Okay. Relationship tension is high. They don't trust us yet. We got to bring that down. Once they trust us, now we got to increase their motivation, their reason to take action, because people naturally will hesitate. People naturally do not want to commit. People naturally do not want to move forward. So we have to understand and ask great questions to know, why do we want to do that? Why are we talking? Jesse, we met a few weeks ago and I could tell, like, we got something here, man. Like, why don't you want to make this commitment right now? And I didn't do that. I didn't put the hard pressure because I know Jesse knows. And I knew when he reached out a few weeks later, I'm like, let's go. Now he's ready. Now he knows this is where he wants to be, right? Not to put you on the spot by any means. It's the reality of it. But I didn't push him and say, oh, Jesse, come on, man. You're making the biggest mistake of your life right now. This is where you need to be. Why aren't you doing it? Was I disappointed? I was, because I like you and I'm grateful that you're here. But it's not about me. It's about you. It's about when the time's right for you. And think about this with your clients. And that's the only reason why I'm bringing it up. It's not about us. It's about them. trust that you did a great job in persuading them and giving them the information they need to self-discover, and you change people's perspectives. And remember this, you have to change their perspective. That's what makes you a great communicator and a great leader. They are stuck in a certain line of thought for whatever reason. You have to change it by asking great questions to discover what it is that they want. Once they self-discover, now they'll take action. Now they will call you or text you, right? Now it will come back. And the stronger that you are through that process, the better it happens. Yes, Roberta?
And that right there is giving value.
100%.
When you educate them like that, when you switch it around like that, that gives them value.
Should bring up to something that we have dealt with last night. And that's what I need to know right now.
That's perfect.
So it has to do with, we had this one particular individual that was set on the mind in certain ways, and at the time I was driving while the conversation was going. And she was very adamant about the position of not writing a credit report,
Right.
you know, but looking for a property, waiting to find a property. Where I should have thought about this, and Roberta was asking last night, what should we have done different? What should we have done different? Didn't come to me until right now, and it's right, it's self-discovery. We should have been asking the right questions for the self-discovery.
So what are the right questions?
The right questions that if actually you actually brought it up and we just didn't touch it strongly is what happens if we do find that home and everybody else is ready to make that offer right there and then. We have 24 hours. We would have to start
Over.
or.
And what happens
And I
then?
thought
We wouldn't be in a
what
position
we're
to really-
losing,
we
I
wouldn't lose
thought
an
we were
offer.
losing it fast.
You
And I'm
already
like,
lose.
Jesse, come on, we're on the doing a conference call and I'm like.
Yeah.
I'm trying everything to keep her in, you know, like what started talking about positive stuff. What if that what ifs doesn't happen?
Right.
What if we do get
That was the
opportunity?
and the ifs or.
That was her ifs, but I was trying to stay the driver to keep her safe and said, why are we putting fear in it? Why are we putting fear here, Juanita? We don't need to put no fear in here. You trust us. We're two agents right here. We're
So let me add to that real quick. Okay. So what you do when they're in that space is you have to, again, be able to differentiate. And you have to be able to get them to understand that your job is to protect them. They have to understand the whole process. They have to understand, and Jesse already knows this because I've seen him teach it. He's one of the best at teaching the first time homebuyer class out there. And also to be very clear, in our very first meetings, he was teaching and coaching two of our top agents in our office. It wasn't the other way around. It was him. But I also wanted him to do that because I knew that's where he needs to be, in this room with these people, giving your gifts that you have, your ability to contribute, your ability to teach, to lead others. That's why you're here. And I know that. And that's what we have in common, right?
That's why I'm here.
That's why you're here, because of him. Exactly. And that's why you're gonna continue. And Justin, yeah, you're stuck with us too, bud. So hurry up and get your license and you'll be here too. You're already here. But so no, just getting back to that though. So what you do in that situation is you say, look, our job is to get your offer accepted. We have to, if we don't secure the house, this is one of the most competitive real estate markets I've ever been a part of. And you got to be very clear with them. You got to set the proper expectation. If we don't have all our ducks in a row, we don't have all our credit stuff figured out, if we don't have our proof of funds, if we don't have everything dialed in and all of our boxes checked, I will not have a chance at getting your offer accepted. Do you understand what I'm saying? Right. So now if you don't do those things, then unfortunately, you're not committed. Your task tension, you don't say task tension, but you're not committed to this the way I'm committed to it. And I have 4 to 5 clients, 5 to 7, whatever number you want to come up with, that I work with at one time. I know that's my bandwidth. I know that's where I can fully represent my clients and be ready for them when they need it and do what needs to happen, but they're all committed to the process. They're all committed to getting their ducks in a row. So if we're not a good fit for each other, I wish you all the best. I can refer you to somebody else who's got a lot more time because they're not doing anything and they can help you out. And good luck with that. Let me know how that goes. And I'm serious. I speak with that type of arrogance in that because I know what I bring to the table. You want to work with me? Then you need to show me you want to get this done. And there's a conviction I have when I speak to people that isn't mean, it's the truth.
I don't maybe I said something that was not, appropriate to her, but I did say, look, to make a successful transaction here, we are two great agents, but we need your cooperation too. We need you to get in, speak with the lender, see what you're approved for.
That's fine. You didn't overstep anything. And if they don't, let them go. Okay, and it's called the takeaway close. I've seen some people do it in action that have learned it, but does everybody know what the takeaway close is? What's the takeaway close, Silver? Do you know? Takeaway close, anybody?
You know, it's here now, but it's promising it's in the next 5 minutes.
So you take it away from them, right? So takeaway close is like, you know what? I don't think we're a great fit for each other. I've already shown you 2 properties now out here that were off market. You wanted to write 40,000 under asking price on both these properties. These are connections that I have that you're making us look bad now, right? So we're not gonna do this again. So unfortunately, this isn't gonna work. This is that real talk that I'm having. That's the takeaway close. Guess what that person said? Oh, well, I got another open house person who's still calling me up. I said, that's great, work with them. But we don't want to work with them. We want to work with you. Okay, well, if you want to work with me, then we got to play to win. You want to work with me? I'm good at what I do because my clients follow my lead, right? Otherwise, we're wasting each other's time here. Remember, you're not the one following their lead. You are leading them. If they don't play ball, you're out.
Yeah.
Okay? That's it. There's no other discussion. This isn't about being hard-nosed, nothing. This is about understanding how this works. And you want to take it to that level, that's what you have to do. You have to get to that point. Now, I don't come out flexing, guns blazing. There's not much to flex these days, right? So I don't do all that right out the gate. But when we're getting to closing, that's when you'll see the flex. That's when you'll see that confidence. And you got to be in it and know it. And that confidence it's got to be there from beginning to end. But at the end, when you're ready to ask that question, are you ready to get started? You ready to take care of the paperwork? That's all your close has to be. You ready to get going? How are you feeling about what we've talked about? If you got an expressive or amiable? Yes.
I was gonna say, one of the things that I use with my clients, whether it's a buyer or a seller, I tell them that the transaction that we're gonna do, this project that we're gonna do, we need everybody to be a player.
Yep.
I said, this is a team, process over here. It's not just me, because I can show you many houses, but if you're not focused on the things that we need to do,
Right.
then there's nothing I can do.
Right.
And then on the other hand too, I gotta make sure that I'm trying to get the best deal for you and find the house that you're looking for.
Mhm.
So I say, we gotta play, we gotta be a team player over here. I
That's
want
perfect.
everybody to be involved over here, and not just.
Excuse me.
But at the same time, I know that I'm the one that's supposed to lead them. But once I say that, they're like, okay, yeah, we get it. So anytime I ask them something, they're like, okay, here it is.
Perfect. And it's called future pacing, setting expectations. You have to, so as we do the discovery section, I'm gonna quickly go into it, and I saw Amelia's hand, so I didn't forget about you. We're gonna do it. Go ahead, Amelia.
Can I say it real quick?
Yep.
So I'm listening to this scenario, and I mean, no disrespect to anybody in the conversation. but
Uh-huh.
I would always, when I'm talking and they don't want to do something that I'm recommending, I take it back to myself. Have I not discovered enough for this person? I always think of my clients as like, if I'm a doctor and they're in a paper road, why don't they want to show me that mold they came in to show me? Their job is to go get qualified. Well, they don't want to take off that road. I haven't made them feel comfortable enough.
Right.
And with the credit situation, running the credit, if that scenario comes up, and I think it has before with us, I say, is there something that we're apprehensive about in this credit check? Could there be something? And sometimes, well, I was married before and this really happened. I said, so take that off the table. I have somebody who can help. Just know that. We have to find out, because I can't stand in front of anything that I don't know about with full transparency. And they're like, oh, so if there is something that might find, it's good for us to know, because you might be not 30 days out, but 90 days out. And normally they're a little bit more open to it, because they're like, oh, the fear, people don't do things because of fear and uncertainty. So us trying to make them more certain that they're gonna be okay, whether it comes out good or bad, and they're not rejected, is the thing that I try to do.
That's actually valid, because this have a history, so we don't know, so that it would be a good approach, to
Yeah,
self-discover again,
'cause-
you know?
yeah, because when people don't wanna have their credit run, some people don't want the NIC, but then they have to be explained to what that
That's
looks like. It's a soft
Education, yeah.
soft inquiry versus a hard inquiry, but some people are genuinely afraid of the rejection of their credit scores so many times in first time buyer classes. People genuinely do not know their score. And it's like, whoa, but hey, it is what it is.
There's that fear, right?
Transparent. Once they run that credit report, we would be able to be more transparent.
Yeah, there's credit people.
Right now, we're guessing.
Yeah, and that's almost, I would call the person today and say, you know what, Juanita, I only got the name, because I listed your complaint. I would say, I've been thinking a lot about you. I know that you're, apprehensive to get your credit runs. Is there something that you're apprehensive about in that check that maybe I can help you with? And maybe she'll come to that. Well, okay, well, let's get it done. I have somebody who can fix it.
It's great.
Sorry.
No,
This is
don't be.
like-
No, it's education. It's perfect. It's exactly, and you're gonna see that. So as much as we talk about the outline, there's a process in which Amelia understands and is hitting on that works. That does work. And it all goes back. It was a great question that you asked, is when they're given those one word answers and they're not opening up and they're not willing to commit to you, it's because of those things. And we got to figure out, how do we discover more? How do we connect more? Again, if I came out the approach with anybody who I've recruited to this company in ways that you don't want to be approached, the wall's up. I'm not thinking about moving. I'm not going to do that. But if you get to know people and you sincerely care about them and sincerely want to understand them, right? That's a whole nother story. So when you think of these listing presentations, just sincerely want to help them out. Sincerely want to get to know them, understand them, master that. And if you understand that process, the rest of this doesn't matter if you hit every 1 through 10 on this checklist, on this outline. It doesn't. Because when you're a master at this process that we're talking about, that's the real meat of it. That will help you convert more. That will help you connect more. That will help you create the value. Okay. And be able to overcome it. But there are some good things that I want to touch on that's even a little bit differently than what I've shared in the past. I did some preparation for this last night, and as I was going through old videos and things, there's things that I've been leaving out that I wanted to touch on. So for the new ones that haven't seen this, there's some key things we'll talk about. Okay. So in the listing presentation, let me just jump into it first. You got phase 1 and phase 2. They want to know price and commission. We talked about this a little bit at the last training. Okay. We don't talk about that till the end because we have to create the value and we got to get them to choose us first. And they're going to choose us by the 6 things that I talked about earlier in terms of creating rapport, making them feel safe, the trust, discovery, getting to know them, right? Creating the value and doing those things. So we start with TAP. TAP is thank, acknowledge, and promise. Thank you, Severio, for having me over at your beautiful home. Flowers are great. Obviously, you take a lot of pride in the landscaping and you've done an awesome job here. My promise to you is that at the end of this presentation, that you're going to have a better understanding of what it takes to sell your home for top dollar in this market. Does that sound good? So that's a very nice promise. That's no pressure, no risk, no nothing. Now I can be a little more assumptive and say something to the effect of my promise to you is at the end of this presentation that you're going to be confident that I can sell your home for top dollar and we'll get your home listed today. Does that sound good? Right? That's a little more bold, a little more assumptive. And you can assume more if you have a stronger relationship with the person. Okay. You can assume more because they're part of your SOI. They're a past client. There's something, so you can assume more. So don't be afraid to assume more in that situation. Don't jump it as much when you don't know them that way, because then that relationship tension wall gets higher. Does that make sense? We can't assume more in that situation. Okay. So you'll get that. MAP is people need to know where they're going. If I say, Amelia, let's hop in the car, let's go.
What are we doing?
Exactly. Okay. Now, if I say, Amelia, we're going to go pick up the best burrito in town right now. You ready to hop in the car?
Let's go down.
Let's do it. Let's go get it. And let's go downtown Oxnard. You're right. It's not here in Cameroon. Okay. So let's go downtown Oxnard. So they got to know where they're going. So we have to, as leaders and as communicators, give them a guidance, right? So what we say is something to the effect of there's 4 key things that we're gonna cover here. First, we're gonna talk about your needs, your wants, and your expectations. We're gonna talk about what your expectations are of the agents you look to hire, as well as what my expectations are for my clients, for us to work together, okay? Number two, we're gonna talk about marketing plan of action. These are the things that we do to sell homes for top dollar, right? And we're gonna talk about those things, okay? Number three, we're gonna talk about the market and the price and how the market affects the price, okay? What's happening in the market today, where it's been, and where it's heading. We're gonna hit it on the macro level, what's happening on the big level, in terms of the economy, real estate cycles. This is where this comes in. We're also gonna talk about how the price, well, how the market affects the pricing, right? And that's what's called pricing intelligently and our pricing strategy. Okay, then we will get into the CMA. That's where we're gonna go over our comps to come up with a value that we believe a buyer is gonna be willing to pay. But in part of pricing intelligently in the pricing strategy, we are gonna get them to understand that it isn't myself as the agent that determines the price. Who determines the price for a home?
Buyers.
The market and the buyers, the buyer demand, right? Supply and demand. How much inventory do we have? How strong is the buyer confidence right now based on what's happening? That's in terms of talking about the economy, the macro level, right? So things that I'll prepare, I'm going to talk to the loan. And not only am I going to have a net sheet, I'm also going to have a pricing sheet. This pricing sheet's gold. You got to know about the loan. What does that payment look like? Do you know what kind of shock they're in when they hear that their home that's 1,000 square feet that will sell for $700,000+ is going to be a $5,500 a month mortgage payment? It's crazy. That's entry level, $5,500 a month, sometimes with $200,000 down. That's more at the 8 range, right? $200K down, and you're at that point. They don't know this. This is the part of us separating ourselves from the competition and educating them and creating the value and the trust. That makes sense? It's got to be a part of the presentation. It should be. But again, it will be after we do, which is part 3, and that's going to be the questions. So I did map. 3 is discovery. These are your questions. So after I give that overview, I talked about the 3. The 4th one is we'll take care of some paperwork. If you're confident and comfortable with what I've shared with you, we're going to take care of some paperwork. Okay. And that's an assumptive close that we are taking the listing that day. I'm already prepping it. Does that sound good? Are you okay with that? And they may say, well, hold up. You know, we're going to interview 2 other people. That's okay for them to say that. Don't be afraid of that. Say, that's great. This is a very important process. I appreciate you having me over here first, because I know with what I'm going to share with you that nobody else is going to do what I do when I represent my clients. And I speak with that confidence and that conviction. You have to know you're the best. There's nobody else out there that's better than you and that you can get the job done. And if you don't feel that confidence, then we need to talk. We got to figure out how to make sure that you are that confident, that you are the best, and that you can get the job done. Okay. We got to work towards that. So on the discovery is key. The questions you ask, you have to understand what's your favorite questions when you sit down with the seller, Laura. What's a favorite question of yours that you want to discover at any point? Okay, so it could be pre-qual, it could be in the listing presentation. What's a good question for you?
I mean, typically the first one would be, why do they need to sell?
Why do they need to sell? Okay, so why? So I like to say, why you want to be careful with. And I want to say that so the idea is right. Why do you want to sell is right. Just like you don't want to say, what's your motivation to sell? You don't say it. That's what we're discovering. We want to say, I really want to know what your motivation is in selling. How does that come across? Not good, right? What can why do? And this isn't picking on you by any means, because it's the right answer. You do want to find out why they want to sell. Just like you want to find out the motivation, but why will put them on defense.
Correct.
So you want to say, what are you ultimately trying to accomplish? Okay. A why can make somebody feel like, well, why do you want to sell your home?
Why are you asking me so many questions?
Right. That could lead to that. Right. And if they ask that, say, well, because if I don't understand what you're trying to accomplish, then I cannot help you. And I can't share with you what's needed for you to get what it is that you're ultimately trying to get. So what are you ultimately trying to get with the sale of your home? That's a good open-ended question right out the gate, right? Go ahead.
John Syed, taught me one time,
Uh-huh.
we had a conversation and he goes, Silver, why don't you ask them, instead of saying, why are you selling? He said, why don't you ask them, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, would you please share with me your story? Where are you moving after this?
Perfect.
You know,
Perfect.
And then they start talking.
And write
She
that
start
question
talking,
down.
you start
Lucci, I'm
talking.
not seeing you write this. This is gold. You should be writing every single thing down. Are you recording this? You should be recording it. So you didn't listen to anything I said at the very beginning. All right, you go, just leave, just go. Just get out of the class. You're done. So record everything, write this, I'm telling you guys, as simple as it sounds, this is it. This is the fundamental. This is what we all have to master. And if you can't just recite it and know it and be able to teach, it's not going to come when you need it. And you're going to miss it. And you're not going to close them because you missed it, because you're focused on their dog, or you're focused on finding commonalities or them liking you. That's only a part of it. I'm telling you, I've taken listings where they didn't like me. And I never knew that that could even be the case. But I knew, I mean, there's a lot of people that don't like me, and I'd have skinny kids if I couldn't figure out how to get business, right? They have to respect you. They got to trust you. They got to know that you're good at what you do. They got to know that you're the best at what you do. And if they know that, they're going to work with you. You may not be their best friend. They may not be inviting you to any social things.
I was door knocking one time at in Camarillo, and the guy saw me like walking into his front yard.
Uh-huh.
From inside, he yelled at me, he's like, hey, you can leave. I don't need you selling anything over here, blah, blah, blah. Get out of my property. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then, so I'll say, hey, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, disturb you. I'd go my way. I was walking out of the property, and then he went to the door and he's like, all right, you got 5 minutes. Tell me what's up. I come back, 15 minutes later, we're still talking. I ended up selling his son.
So why didn't you take it personally?
Because it's just business. It's nothing personal. It's nothing personal.
No.
And I tell that to other agents who could, they get mad or whatever, discouraged. I'm like, dude, got nothing to do with you. You gotta remember that you're stepping into their property, their zone.
Right.
And if you're respectful, you can gain something.
Sometimes, not only is it the personality, but sometimes they're testing you. Because they know most people will fold on that. Sometimes they're testing you on commission, and they know that most agents will crumble. So I've seen, and this is no joke, I've heard of top agents against each other. And the one who got it had the highest commission. And that's no joke. It's because of the confidence of what they brought. And people are assuming they're looking for the lowest commission. There's only about, like studies show, like 10% of the population, no matter what, are going to get the cheapest discount out there, period. They're looking for the cheapest of whatever. They will never spend more. And that's 10% of the population, only 10. Then there's another 10% that will only spend the most money and buy the most expensive things and will only work with the people who charge the highest. That's the 10 I'm looking for, right?
Correct.
The people who see value, the people that say, you know what, I want you to make money on this deal. Isn't it a pretty amazing? You're like, wait, come again? What was that? No, I want you to get paid. You work hard. I want the best, and I want you to get paid for that. Yes, Frank?
Yeah, I really appreciate that because my clients, most of them are Chinese. By culture, they want to kick back.
So they're the 10%.
Say $2,000.
Right.
Then I cannot give because it's by law I should not give.
Right.
I used to have a lot of this kind of client. So what forced me is right into a contract.
Right.
So everybody knows that. But I'm not happy because why especially as a buyer agent, should I pay them like $2,000? And gradually, I have a little bit more confidence.
Right.
Now I don't have this kind of a client anymore.
Well, that's
Because,
good.
Because if I can get it, I get it. If I cannot get it, that means something on me because I didn't do something right. Just like I really appreciate what you said.
Yeah.
Now I start thinking why I didn't get it. Must be something I didn't get it yet.
You have to, right. It's
So-
like a puzzle. And I'm sorry, go ahead. Was there
Yeah,
anything else?
what I'm trying to say, like, just, when she's talking, I just, remind me a client buyer, with me almost a year now. I showed them like more than 50 houses. I use, what is that, Russell's, crystallization.
Right.
It didn't work.
Right,
So I was kind of puzzled. Supposedly they can afford 1.2 million with jumbo loan.
right,
But they keep looking at it and they always say, this was too big, that was too small, always like that.
right.
Then I don't know what's going on. Then last night, he called me, want to see another one, but that one is the accountant. Then I suddenly realized, she's talking, I suddenly realized, even if they have a lot of money,
Uh-huh,
they're rich,
right,
but they have a lot of burden, like a debt or something.
right,
So they, even if they can, I mean, on paper, they can afford 1.2 million houses,
uh-huh,
but they try to save that money. They try to, buy something cheaper.
right,
So that's why I suddenly realized, I think it's true. I'm setting up for the, hearing appointment with them.
uh-huh,
So, one can say that actually they told me already a couple of times. Didn't say too much. They are thinking about a new business because they are business owner.
that's great,
So now I say, why it didn't click?
right,
When they say that, I know they need the money for sure.
right.
So, I'm ready.
Yeah, no, it's good. And thank you for sharing that. And we want to discover more. And if you can, even before just showing them property again, you're not a professional, just door opener, right? You're the professional. Have them come into your office, have them come here into this office. We've got a beautiful office here. You know, one of the things, and this isn't to put it on any kind of negative note, it's, you know, it gets, I know from an owner standpoint, I've heard it. It gets depressing to him to see we got this big, beautiful office space. And at our meetings, look, we got a great turnout, right? But you have 2 or 3 people at most at a time, typically in the office. So if you were a business owner, what do you start thinking? Do we need it? Do we need the space? Does anybody use it? Why am I throwing this money out the window? Especially as the market's tight. Okay, so remember that. So one, be in the office, come into the office as much as you come into the office. But more importantly, Frank, set appointments with your clients. As a group, our job is to set appointments. Whether you just want to hang out with them and talk, I don't care. I'm not going to go in there and say, oh, do you take the listing, right? But use this beautiful office space to have your clients come in here. When we finally get to where that conference room is so booked up that we got to figure out how to set this conference room up, and we're running 2 all the time, I guarantee you we will be the highest producing office in Camarillo, but we're not doing our job. And I'm guilty of it as well, all of us. We need to set appointments every single day, and they should be coming here. So Frank, for those clients, instead of just showing them the property, you can still, you got to show them sometimes to kind of get the juices going again. But what's more important, especially if they don't write again, which is, I hate to be pessimistic, but likely going to be the case. They don't write, there's a bigger issue. You got to figure out what it is. It's getting back to the question that we talked about earlier. You got to dig deeper. You got to find out what's really there. Say, look, I don't want to waste your time. You try not to say my time. Say, I don't want to waste your time, but we're missing something here. There's something I haven't done right. There's something I haven't figured out yet that is helping you figure out how to win in this market right now. So it's my fault. So because of that, we need to sit down and spend 30 minutes together. Okay. So come into my office, we spend 30 minutes, and I promise you that at the end of that, we're going to have a better idea of what it takes to help you get what you want. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Great. Well, let's get together. Set that appointment up. And that's the challenge I have for everybody in here, not just in taking 2 listings, start bringing people to the office. Okay. Let's start utilizing that conference room. Let's kick Orhan out of the conference room so that we have our clients that are there and he can go somewhere else. And I mean it. And this is a real thing. Yes, I got to get Nagme first and then we'll go.
It was kind of going back to what you were saying, that
Yep.
it's just at some time we also have to recognize that it might not be the right match.
Right.
And if, it's just like, I used to just want to like push, thinking, oh, I cannot let this client go. And then at the end of the day, it was just not the right match.
Right.
And it's just, I think it's important to recognize that as well, that
It is. When to cut your losses, But I also feel more of us, and I'm speaking from past experience, are more intimidated to ask the tough questions. This is a very important concept that I learned from Mike Ferry. The tougher questions you can ask, the deeper you can get with somebody, the more business you're gonna do.
Well, you know what?
You gotta be able to get deep.
When is it easier to ask those questions? It's over here in the office.
100%. That's your
Because
zone.
you feel this is your zone.
Yep.
You feel that over here, this is what you do for a living, and you need to ask those questions. You bring them to the office, meet with them, and then you got a list of stuff that you're gonna ask it one by one. They will tell you, and they will feel more like this is more official. We're not just going over there to show me a house, but you actually mean it, that you actually care for what we need to do in order to find my house.
I cannot think of one person that I've had come meet me at the office that I did not get paid on. And I mean that. Every single time I've had somebody come in, I've turned it into a client and I've turned it into a paycheck. So just remember that. Now, I'm not doing it enough, right? There should be more. I should have more people that are coming in that not everybody's converting. What I'm saying is it works. The process works. If they have just an inkling of just a little bit of motivation to want to own a home someday, and you do this, it will work. But you've got to apply the process. You got to do it. Yes, Cassie.
Oh.
She's like,
this-
I already
this
forgot.
goes way back.
All right, bring it way
before we
back.
kind of
Bring it
into
way
this
back. Yep.
conversation. But we're talking about price and cost and,
Yep.
you know, both buyers and sellers. I feel like one thing that I remembered from when we went to Orlando was that they were saying like, it's not always about price. So price is a one-time transactional thing. Value is lifelong, right? So
like
like
that.
if we get stuck on a number, whether it's commission, whether it's the price of a home, that price is so transactional. So value is not so much longer than that. And if we can convey that to them, our value, the value of the home that they're buying, then it takes that objection away. And obviously that goes back to like discovery and, you know, finding out what they really are looking for, but it's getting them off of just that number.
So I have to piggyback. Awesome. And again, get to where you're able to compare two things like that, price and value. Okay. The way I like to explain price and value is price is a listing price that can cause, you can create value is the buyer demand. Okay. So when we talk about listing a home, the price could be any number. If you overprice it, what happens? Do you get the demand? No, crickets, right? Nothing's happening. If you underprice it, what happens? You create an urgency. And now it's like, I don't know how high to write, right? You're not going to write 5 or 10 over asking price. What are you going to tell them as a good agent? Now, I mean, what are you going to tell them if a home's underpriced? You know, they love it's the gotta have home. They get one crack. It's this, or they don't buy it all. What are you going to tell that client to do in terms of what they're going to write on that house? And you already know it's underpriced.
Well, I think I would have to say, go over, you know, once I know where their maximum is, so
Right.
it's just a matter of
Where their max
at what
is.
point are you gonna be upset losing this house?
Right.
Right at that point, otherwise.
She said the key word. You got to go to the max. What's the highest you can qualify for? What is it? You can't have regrets that you didn't come high enough. So go all in, give it everything you have, and then you may have it. We still can't guarantee that you're going to get this home, right? We've all been in that type of market before. Okay. But if we come in timid in this situation and say, well, what would you like to do? Well, I'd like to write asking price. You know, why am I going to offer more than asking price? Because they don't know. Well, you said this is the only one, right? This is your gotta have house. That's my question. I say it's gotta have, but you got to differentiate between value and price. And that will help you take the listing at the right price, because they'll understand that the price is going to cause the most demand, which is going to cause the best offers to come in. So it only works if we do it the right way. If you follow my lead, that means we price it right. Okay. So does that all make sense? We'll wrap it on that because I know we hit our 11 o'clock, but is there anything else anybody wants to add? I like great contribution. I feel like we got some great things. I know we didn't hit trust, separate yourself and close. We touched on it. We'll get into a little bit more of it, and then we'll jump more into this, because what comes to here before we get to price and before we actually get to the commission is what? When we're at a good spot, we've done enough discovery. And just so you know, your presentation, when we do the plan of action, that changes based on what comes up in the discovery. Does that make sense? So your plan of action isn't the same every single time, even though you may have a list of things that you do. They don't want to hear about your 21 things. Okay? What they want to hear about is what they want to hear about. What's important to them.
Important then.
And so you ask questions like, so how was your experience with your last agent? Again, write it down, Luciano. How was your experience with your last agent? Do this with buyers too. If they've looked before in the past, tell me what you liked about that agent or didn't like. You have to know what they want, what they're looking for. Communication should always come up. How did that client communicate with you? What's your preferred communication? Future pace them. What they don't like is they listed with somebody, never heard from the agent again until an offer came in. It happens all the time. So instead of having them call you, what happened today? What happened today? What happened today? What happened today? It's only day 4. What happened today, right? Well, what happens when these homes sit on the market on average for 21, 30, 60 days? How are you going to future pace that? You are going to go nuts with that listing, right? So you have to future pace them. We will communicate every Monday between 3 and 5 o'clock. And if I can't get a hold of you, is it okay if I just leave you a voicemail? Right? Because that's when I get back to my sellers on Monday, 3 to 5. And I will let you know how many offers we had, how many showings we got, and I also let you know how we look compared to the competition. Does that sound good? Great. So every Monday, we're going to follow up with you. What does that do? It alleviates that phone call every single day. Future pace them, set the expectations. And guess what we're doing in every one of those calls if we're not getting the action? We're getting them to self-discover that we got to drop the price.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying? We're already setting it up for success. Okay, so let's end on that. But good job, everybody. Thank you guys for coming in, and let's keep kicking butt. Yep.